Zhou, the old demon, never expected that a mere mount would dare to act recklessly in the evil sky pavilion. Upon hearing from the female disciple that the mount had released poison, he immediately led everyone out of the main hall. Yunjin, who was following the crowd, almost cried. It would have been fine if Falling Moon Bao had left an apology, but now, would they have to leave the mount as well? A mount was even more precious than a weapon, and once it recognized a master, it was difficult to be tamed by a new one. So, hardly anyone would covet another person's mount. When they arrived outside the evil sky pavilion, looking up, they saw a mount, covered in purple gas and resembling a wolf, running wildly in the sky. The mount was constantly releasing strange purple energy into the air, and the purple energy began to fall. It felt as if the air was being blocked, almost as if a purple fog was about to descend. It was poisonous. Duan Mushing quickly reminded everyone to activate their protective forceful energy. Zhou Jifeng urged, while the poison is still light, hurry up and bring it down. Dan Yunjin immediately flew into the air, heading towards the mount, and shouted loudly, "Beast, come down." At that moment, the mount suddenly turned around, its eyes flashing with brilliance, and it attacked Dan Yunjin at lightning speed. The strike was too sudden, and as a bowman, Dan Yunjin had never anticipated it. With a loud crash, she fell back to the ground. Fortunately, her protective forceful energy blocked most of the attack. The wolf-like mount's body suddenly grew larger and more hideous. Duan Mushing, eager to try, volunteered to fight and take down the beast. Lu Zhou, however, shook his head. This poison was not ordinary. It carried a curse. Everyone was immediately alarmed when they heard this. When it came to curses, they thought of Moli, but how could this mount also use curses? Dan Yunjin immediately knelt and explained, "Pavilion Lord, it's a misunderstanding. If Luo sect wanted to become enemies with Evil Sky Pavilion, how could I possibly walk into a trap? Someone must be trying to sow discord." Lu Zhou remained silent. At this moment, Yuexing raised her hand and released her arrow forceful energy. The golden arrow forceful energy erupted, swishing through the air. 3 arrows of forceful energy struck the mount like shooting stars. This was probably the true meaning of the archer's existence. Whether it was attacking a city or engaging in battle, archers were always an unexpected tactic. Seeing this, Dan Yunjin immediately stood up, drawing her arrow forceful energy. The 6-leaf archer truly had remarkable skills. 3 arrows of forceful energy flew through the air, their power clearly stronger than Yuexing's. Yuexing showed a look of shame, and Hua Wudao patted her shoulder comfortingly. "No need to mind. In no time, you'll surpass her. After all, you're only a 2-leaf, and she is a 6-leaf. Yuexing nodded gently. "Thank you, Elder Hua, for the encouragement." Dan Yunjin's gaze became sharp. The archer's characteristics were now revealed. She had to tame this mount quickly, or else the rift between Luo sect and Evil Sky Pavilion would truly be set in stone. One after another, stronger arrows of forceful energy shot from Dan Yunjin's hands. From the initial 3, they multiplied to 10, blooming like fireworks in the air. Except for some cries of pain, the mount was not injured. Instead, it released poison gas at an even faster speed, constantly weaving through the air. The mount had entered a frenzied state, and such speed could only be matched by constantly using great supernatural powers, and even then, only with a slim chance of catching up, let alone taming it. Lu Zhou had been observing the mount and felt that the aura it emitted was very familiar, but he could not recall where he had seen it before. Though Yuexing felt somewhat ashamed, seeing Dan Yunjin pressing the attack, she dared not relax and once again pulled her arrow forceful energy, shooting it towards the mount. When entering the Evil Sky Pavilion, Lu Zhou had asked her to practice rapid-fire forceful energy, so when she shot, her speed was surprisingly fast, so fast it was almost shocking. Her arrows flew toward the mount in the sky. Continuous shooting wasn't entirely useless. Under the barrage of arrows, even though the mount had tough skin and flesh, it began to howl in pain. Lu Zhou glanced at the sky filled with poisonous gas and said, "Elder Hua, 6 Union Seal." Hua Wudao nodded in understanding, stepped forward, and with a single step, formed the Bagua Seal. 9 seal characters expanded outward in turn, radiating from him and forming a thin sky curtain. This move wasn't for defense but to dispel all the poisonous gas. The effect was evident as the purple poison gas expanded like a growing bubble. It was pushed out of the sky by the 6 Union Seal. The mount, which had been howling from the arrows, suddenly became even more violent when it saw the poison gas retreat. It spun in place 3 times in the air, its cheeks puffing up, and then it sprayed out even larger poison gas downward. At that moment, little Yuaner's voice suddenly rang out, "Master, release Bayan. Let it bite fiercely." But at that moment, Dan Yunjin suddenly shouted and leaped into the air. She drew an arrow of forceful energy with 5 fingers, the curved bow in her hand as thick as an old tree, and when her fingers released, the arrow of forceful energy shot out in an instant. The tip of the arrow forceful energy was glowing as if it had been heated. Everyone was shocked when they saw the arrow. It was enough to prove that her 6-leaf cultivation was no mere boast. Perhaps sensing the threat, the mount immediately stopped spewing poison gas and turned to fly away in haste. Once this mount starts flying at top speed and escapes a certain distance, no cultivator would be able to catch up. However, the arrow of forceful energy had already reached it, and with a bang, it struck the mount directly. The mount screamed in pain, crying out to the sky, but it didn't die. It was only slightly injured. This shot of forceful energy was almost the full power of Dan Yunjin's shot. She immediately became anxious, knowing that she had to kill the mount to clear Luo sect's suspicion. Thus, Yunjin quickly landed and cupped her hands toward Lu Zhou, saying, "Pavilion Lord, may I borrow your weapon for a moment?" She was careful with her wording, using the word borrow. With the falling moon bow, the range would increase several times, the power would also increase significantly, and the speed would become terrifying. However, Lu Zhou shook his head and said, "This mount is being controlled by someone." The mount began to spiral in the air, as if it had sensed the power of the strike. It didn't die, but instead, it sprayed poison gas into the distant sky. The poison gas was blowing towards the evil sky pavilion with the wind. Pan Zhong spoke in surprise. "No wonder it's so cunning. It turns out someone is controlling it." Lu Zhou stroked his beard while watching the mount in the sky. "This mount is called Ba Wu. It is the mount of the Lulan expert, Moli. I once fought against him on the Lotus platform. This mount was able to resist the Blue Lotus energy at that time, and its defensive power is truly astonishing. If we relax, it will be difficult to deal with. With someone controlling it, this Ba Wu is essentially like a human, and it may even use curses." Yunjin, gathering her courage once again, said, "Pavilion Lord, may I borrow a weapon?" Lu Zhou immediately tossed her a weapon. The matter of Luo sect should be handled by Luo sect. In fact, he wanted to see just how strong the defense of this Ba Wu was, how much energy heavenly writing would consume to kill it, and if it wasn't enough, he would consider using lethal strike. Once Yunjin obtained the falling moon bow, she clearly became much more confident. She took to the air once again. Forceful energy surrounded the falling moon bow, as if it had been coated with a layer of gold, emitting a faint glow. Under the wrapping of forceful energy, the originally delicate falling moon bow seemed to have grown several times larger, and then it started to tremble, buzzing loudly. Yunjin pulled the string of the falling moon bow with her right hand, and a much stronger arrow forceful energy appeared, marking her as a six-leaf archer. Everyone's attention focused on her shot, including Hua Yuexing, who gave up on continuing to shoot. No matter how well she performed, she could never compare to Yunjin with the falling moon bow. The atmosphere became tense. Yunjin held her breath, focusing her sharp gaze on the Ba Wu spiraling in the sky. The arrow forceful energy was completed, and with a loud bang, she released her fingers. The unique crisp sound of the falling moon bow rang out, followed by the sound of the bowstring vibrating as the arrow forceful energy shot through the air. The Ba Wu, feeling the threat as before, suddenly stopped and performed a special move. It curled up its body, resembling a hedgehog, with its first standing on end. The arrow forceful energy struck the Ba Wu, and a rain of forceful energy fell from the sky. A miserable scream echoed through the air as purple energy dispersed from the Ba Wu. It had been injured. Unfortunately, it wasn't killed, it was trying to escape. The Ba Wu became scared. It didn't expect to encounter such a powerful archer on Golden Court Mountain. Its master seemed to have given up on the original plan, turning and fleeing at high speed. Yunjin was not satisfied with the previous arrow. In her view, even if that arrow couldn't kill the Ba Wu, it should have heavily injured it and brought it down. She drew the falling moon bow again, and another arrow of forceful energy flew out. The Ba Wu's flying speed was too fast, and when the arrow struck again, its power was noticeably weaker than before. Beast. Yunjin became anxious. The more anxious she became, the less she could fully exert her power. Her breath and primal energy became disorganized and lacked rhythm, allowing the Ba Wu to escape. Ba Wu, injured, continued to run madly, stepping on purple clouds as it fled. Yunjin shook her head helplessly, but she also felt a bit relieved. As long as the beast no longer released poison or caused trouble in the evil sky pavilion, everything else could be dealt with. Looking at the Mount Ba Wu, which was growing more distant, Yunjin cupped her hands and said, "This mount is extraordinary. I hope Pavilion Lord will take note." Lu Zhou slightly raised his hand. Forceful energy surged, and the falling moon bow broke free from Yunjin's hand, flying back into his palm. When did Luo sect form an alliance with the Lulan people? After saying this, Lu Zhou's body floated upwards like a willow leaf. His speed wasn't fast, and he seemed unremarkable. What is Pavilion Lord going to do? Everyone looked toward Lu Zhou in expectation. Lu Zhou held the falling moon bow and looked toward the northwest. Ba Wu had become as small as a palm, flying farther and farther away, growing smaller and smaller. Yunjin shook her head. In her understanding, at such a distance, and with the beast still running wildly, it had already escaped the shooting range. It was almost impossible to hit it, let alone kill it. At that moment, Lu Zhou placed his right hand on the string, closed his eyes, and then opened them again. In his mind, the mantra for the third divine power of heavenly writing echoed. From the beginningless, within all existences, revolving through cycles of life and death, all are known. This is the power of the dwelling mind through thoughts. As the extraordinary power of heavenly writing surged, a faint blue light shimmered visibly between his fingers. Anyone from the evil sky pavilion who had seen Lu Zhou make a move became excited. Yunjin, even more astonished, widened her eyes. Meteor chasing the moon. How is this forceful energy arrow identical to the one I created? The method to condense such an arrow forceful energy was my original technique, and I've never shared it before. How could this happen? There's only one possibility. That is, when she used this technique just now, Pavilion Lord must have seen it and directly learned it. At this thought, Yunjin was even more shocked. She had named this move Meteor Chasing the Moon, meaning like a meteor chasing the moon, perfectly fitting the falling falling moon bow's characteristics. This was a modified version. The blue forceful energy surrounding the falling moon bow suddenly expanded, forming a supersized bow and arrow. Everyone's attention was focused on that move. Meteor chasing the moon was launched, and the blue arrow forceful energy streaked through the air like a meteor, chasing the tiny Mount Baowu. Could it hit from this distance? The arrow forceful energy shot forward at terrifying speed, and everyone held their breath. The common folk working in the fields below were drawn to the unique sound, looking up to see the arrow forceful energy. What is that? Something flying out of Evil Sky Pavilion. Strange. Don't worry about it. Whatever comes from Evil Sky Pavilion is normal. The common folk were smart. They didn't oppose Evil Sky Pavilion. Instead, they lived peacefully, farming and surviving on the fertile land surrounding it. For them, there was no such thing as evil or righteous magic. As long as it didn't harm them, it wasn't evil. Some of the people had even become accustomed to the presence of Evil Sky Pavilion. They would stop and watch from a distance, occasionally enjoying the spectacle as a normal part of life. Perhaps because it was so far away, it took a while before they heard a sound. Pooh-hoo. It hit. The sound was muffled and short. Then, a dazzling scene unfolded. The arrow forceful energy bloomed like fireworks from a distant place, and the purple gas exploded, spilling out into the sky. Old demon Lu Zhou used just one arrow, and it killed the beastly sky wolf thousands of miles away. Upon seeing this, everyone was stunned. Dan Yunjin's body trembled slightly, and she couldn't believe it. Although she was a six-leaf archer, when she saw the distance to Baowu, she almost didn't believe it was possible to hit it. Actions speak louder than words, and this earth-shattering shot had achieved the impossible. Dang! Killed a mount, earned 1,500 merit points. Lu Zhou's expression remained unchanged as he sensed the remaining heavenly riding energy. About a third had been used. This third of the burst was even stronger than when he debated on the Lotus platform. From this, it could be inferred that the extraordinary power of heavenly riding currently stored could release this level of energy 3 times. If the opponent were strong enough, the power could be unleashed all at once for maximum effect. Bring the corpse back. Upon hearing the master's order, Old Eighth suddenly darted forward and loudly said, "Don't move. Such dirty and tiring work shouldn't be left to the senior brothers, sisters, or junior sisters. Let me, Old Eighth, handle it. You don't know, mounts like this are particularly filthy. They have tough skin, thick flesh, and are heavy." Everyone nodded after hearing this. Old Eighth, you're something else. Mr. 8, truly capable of enduring and retreating. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded. Be cautious of the curses on it. Zhu Honghong responded and flew into the air, summoning his 100 Tribulation Insight avatar, heading swiftly towards the place where Baowu had fallen. At the same time, in a dark room, Bama spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, his body slumping in weakness. He had been controlling the mount remotely, essentially merging with it as one. When the mount died, he was naturally severely injured. This was the flaw of curses. Bama couldn't believe it. He had been planning this for a long time. This move could attack Evil Sky Pavilion and also sow discord between Luo sect and Evil Sky Pavilion. Even if Baowu failed, he could still retreat easily. But now, he had grossly underestimated Evil Sky Pavilion's power. Dan Yunjin couldn't possibly be this strong. How did she manage to do it? Bama knew better than anyone how strong Baowu's defense was. Even nascent Divinity Tribulation Realm 7 or 8 leaf experts wouldn't dare claim they could kill Baowu in a short time. Moreover, Baowu's escape speed was top-notch. Even at such a great distance earlier, through the mount's eyes, he could barely see any trace of Evil Sky Pavilion, and at best, he could only see the outline of Golden Court Mountain. Could a 6-leaf Dan Yunjin really have such strength? Bama refused to believe it. The death of the mount was undoubtedly a heavy blow. His face turned pale as he clenched his fists, unwillingly muttering 3 words, Evil Sky Pavilion. Meanwhile, Dan Yunjin arrived in front of Lu Zhou and respectfully said, "Pavilion Lord, that astonishing shot truly opened my eyes. May I ask Pavilion Lord to enlighten me on that shot just now was?" Lu Zhou raised his hand to interrupt her. "Do you think you're qualified to ask me for guidance?" He wasn't wrong. You're not even Pavilion Lord's disciple. What right do you have to be taught? None of us from Evil Sky Pavilion have that privilege. Pan Zhong and Zhou Jifeng chimed in, leaving the people nearby stunned. Being allowed to stand here and witness Pavilion Lord's display of power is already a great honor for you. Lu Zhou didn't even glance at Dan Yunjin. He handed the falling moon bow to Hua Yueshing. Hua Yueshing hurriedly received the falling moon bow, slightly flustered. "Pavilion Lord, what is this? The falling moon bow is always yours. I'm just standing in for you, ensuring justice." The falling moon bow naturally returns to its rightful owner. Hua Yueshing was overjoyed and knelt before Lu Zhou, holding the falling moon bow with both hands. "I thank Pavilion Lord." Hua Wudao chuckled. "Congratulations. It's a pity that the falling moon bow has already recognized Dan Yunjin as its master. To unleash its full power, it must be refined." Upon hearing the words recognized as master, Dan Yunjin fell silent, her face full of awkwardness. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and glanced at Dan Yunjin, saying, "I had some connections with Yun Tianluo in the past. Yun Tianluo's archery is much stronger than yours." Dan Yunjin broke out in a cold sweat on her forehead. "So Pavilion Lord has connections with the ancestor. I humbly ask Pavilion Lord to spare me for the sake of the ancestor's kindness." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and asked, "Who owns the Mount Baowu?" Dan Yunjin truthfully answered, "It belongs to Elder Lu Ping. Go back and tell him him that I want to see him. Dan Yunjin was overjoyed. This medieval sky pavilion would let her off. As for Lu Ping, she didn't care about his life or death. After all, it was his borrowed mount that nearly caused a disaster. Dan Yunjin left Evil Sky Pavilion with her subordinates, looking defeated. After a while, Zhu Honghong flew back, carrying the Mount Baowu. He threw it directly onto the ground. Everyone gathered around, looking at the Mount Baowu. It had a wild wolf-like appearance, purple fur, bulging eyes, exposed teeth, and was quite ugly. They continued to examine the mount. It was not a bad thing to broaden their knowledge. Zhu Honghong bent slightly and gestured. Master, it's up to you to decide. This mount is likely from the southwest Sky Chasm forest. Its fur is thick and resistant to the cold. Its hide can fetch at least 1,000 taels of silver, and its fangs are rare, useful as medicinal ingredients, worth about 500 taels. As for the meat, it's not worth much. This kind of wild beast has tough meat and a strong fishy odor. The crowd looked at Zhu Honghong with suspicion, unsure of what he was talking about. Does Evil Sky Pavilion lack these things? Sensing the odd looks from the crowd, Zhu Honghong scratched his head, slightly embarrassed. Sorry. He was used to it. Then he began to flatter again. Master, this shot was truly earth-shattering, causing the heavens to weep. Lu Zhou waved his hand to interrupt him and ordered, burn it with fire and bury it. Understood, master. Without another word, Zhu Honghong dragged the massive mount towards the back mountain. At this point, Huai Yuexing bowed and said, Pavilion Lord, I have something to ask. I wish to learn meteor chasing the moon. Lu Zhou stroked his beard. This technique is not a high-level archery skill. The Western Pavilion and Northern Pavilion have better archery techniques to reference. Once you reach 5 leaves, then consider creating your own archery techniques. As for the falling moon bow recognizing a master, we'll refine it when I have more time. After saying this, he turned and returned to the Eastern Pavilion. Huai Yuexing was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. After coming to his senses, he quickly bowed to Lu Zhou's back, saying, Thank you, Pavilion Lord. Once back in the Eastern Pavilion, Lu Zhou felt a bit restless. He checked his merit points and decided to try his luck with a draw. If he could draw the 10 Directions universe, it would be a big win. Ding! This draw consumed 50 merit points, and he received 1 reversal card. Good start, lucky indeed. Lu Zhou felt bold and went for a 10-pull draw, but to his surprise, all he got was thank you for your patronage. He looked at his lucky points and decided to try again. This draw consumed 50 merit points and 10 lucky points, and he received 10 reversal cards. Has the system been giving me reversal cards lately, or is the system trying to send some kind of hint? Either way, better than nothing. Lu Zhou thought for a moment and decided to do a 20-pull draw. Great, very powerful. All thank you for your patronage. After a brief moment of silence, he opened the item shop and purchased the Avatar 10 Directions Universe. Acquired Avatar 10 Directions Universe, consuming 30,000 merit points. Would you like to use it? He didn't use it immediately but looked at the price of the 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar, 100,000 merit points. Suppressing his urge to curse, Lu Zhou checked his remaining points, only 1,600. It was a pity he didn't draw the refining symbol. Unlike item cards, it doesn't appear just to be purchased. He would have to try his luck again if possible, but with the remaining merit points, he couldn't buy anything. He couldn't even afford to buy a lethal strike card. This was tough. As he sighed over his poverty, the system's prompt suddenly rang in his ears. Ding! Kill a target and earn 1,000 merit points. Lu Zhou was no stranger to such notifications. He couldn't help but wonder, which elder has Yu Shangrong set his sights on this time? No matter who it was, they didn't deserve sympathy after dying. He immediately chanted quietly and used the 10 Directions universe. Then, he felt a new energy fill his body as the 9 cycles of Yin and Yang Avatar dissipated and was replaced by the 10 Directions universe. Night fell. Giani and Pan Lydian were on the rooftop, drinking and chatting. Since you're the 3rd prince, why didn't you tell the Empress Dowager? Upon hearing Pan Lydian's question, Giani smiled and asked in return, Elder Pan, since you're Pan Zhong's 4th generation ancestor, why didn't you tell him? I'm the one asking you, and you turned the question back on me. Wait, how did you know? Isn't it simple? You were close to the 4th prince when you were stationed on the southwest border, and I investigated your background back then. You little rascal, you're quite crafty. As they were having a lively conversation, a wave of energy suddenly emanated from the Eastern Pavilion. Jian furrowed his brow upon noticing this. Has someone invaded the Evil Sky Pavilion? Pan Lydian shook his head, unbothered. You'll get used to it. Pavilion Lord likes to do these strange things when there's nothing else going on. With a loud boom, the energy gathered, and the Eastern Pavilion fell silent once again. Jian was about to continue their conversation when another, even stronger, wave of energy hit. This time, it came from the Southern Pavilion, and the energy was many times stronger than the one from the Eastern Pavilion. Jian scratched his head. An external enemy really has invaded. Looks like my charm isn't too bad. Even if news of my death gets out, people will still be thinking about me. It's really troublesome. Pan Lydian, with far more experience, knowledge, and insight than Jian, furrowed his brow and immediately said, The 9th girl is right. You really have thick skin. The cold and warmth alternated, swirling up and down. The 10 Directions universe stirred, with countless waves rising. This was the breakthrough of the 10 Directions universe avatar toward advancing into the 100 Tribulation insight. Jian touched his cheek. I thought someone was trying to assassinate me again, but it seems someone has broken through. Who could it be? Pan Lydian seemed to have thought of something, his eyes lighting up. Could it be my 4th generation grandson, who is so talentless? Nice try. Pan Zhong is in the Western Pavilion, not the Southern Pavilion. Among the disciples of Evil Sky Pavilion, the only one without the 100 Tribulation Insight avatar is Xiao Yu. Giani laughed. My sister really is lucky. The energy fluctuations lasted for about half an hour before subsiding, and the Southern Pavilion fell silent. Pan Lydian took a sip from his wine gourd. One is the 3rd prince, the other is a royal orphan. The Great Flame royal family only has the 4th prince who even remotely fits the role. It's a pity he wasn't destined to inherit the throne. His mission lies on the borders. Jian raised an eyebrow. He saved your life, so of course you'll speak well of him. You didn't see how he was cozying up to Luhan. Pan Lydian smiled faintly. All for survival. Aren't you the same? The 4th prince did indeed save my life. To repay him, I've served in the military for decades, killing countless enemies, and in the end, my cultivation was completely lost. I'd say that's repaying his kindness. Jian nodded and gave him a respectful salute. You know how to repay kindness. You still have a conscience. The time quickly passed, and the next morning, Xiao Yu excitedly arrived at the Eastern Pavilion door. Master, your disciple has not disappointed you and has entered the nascent divinity tribulation realm. Lu Zhou opened his eyes, walked out of the Eastern Pavilion with his hands behind his back, glanced at her, stroked his beard, and nodded, saying, Good, Master, I heard that you were refining the 10 Directions universe again last night, so I didn't dare disturb you. Hearing this, Lu Zhou responded nonchalantly, reviewing the past to learn the new. You disciples can also use this method for your cultivation. Anyway, you all have remarkable talents. Letting you practice the old methods from time to time will only benefit you, not harm you. Have you fully comprehended the clear jade technique? Xiao Yu replied, I've mostly comprehended it. Lu Zhou nodded in satisfaction. The clear jade technique alternates between cold and warmth, yin and yang. It's very suitable for your cultivation. After saying that, he raised his hand slightly, and a jade green dagger flew towards Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu was a bit stunned. Seeing the object flying towards her, she quickly caught it. Originally, I planned to grant you the tear-stained gauntlets, but considering you're a woman, I gave them to Old Eighth instead. The dagger, though small, is a good weapon. I'm giving you the Azure Fall blade. Do you have any objections? Xiao Yu thought of Old Eighth's massive fists and the metal wrapping around them. She shivered and responded, Disciple has no objections. I really like the Azure Fall blade. That's good. I bestow upon you the Azure Fall blade. Use it well. Xiao Yu was overjoyed and immediately gave Lu Zhou a respectful kowtow, saying, Disciple thanks Master. The Azure Fall blade weapon was activated. Great. Heavenly. Master. Xiao Yu. Merit points awarded. 1,000. This prompt was expected by Lu Zhou. He suddenly remembered that the tear-stained gauntlets hadn't activated their grade. At that moment, Zhou Jifeng ran over to inform him, Luo sect's people are here. Mr. Fourth has already allowed them to come up the mountain. Lu Zhou nodded, then flicked his sleeves and walked towards the Evil Sky Pavilion's main hall. Soon after, in the main hall of the Evil Sky Pavilion, Lu Ping saw Lu Zhou and immediately cupped his hands, saying, The younger generation pays respects to Pavilion Lord. Lu Zhou's gaze focused on the young man at the front. Are you the 3rd elder of Luo sect? As the youngest elder of Luo sect, Lu Ping naturally carried some arrogance. That is indeed me. Lu Zhou stroked his beard while examining the people before him. At this moment, Duan Mushing shouted coldly, Meal. Lu Ping was momentarily stunned. Didn't Dan Yunjin say Pavilion Lord was easy to talk to? Why is his attitude so harsh? Duan Mushing raised the Overlord's spear in his hand and slammed it onto the ground. Don't understand what I'm saying? Lu Ping panicked, quickly kneeling with a thud. The younger generation pays respects to Elder Ji. In his heart, he cursed Dan Yunjin 100 times. Lu Zhou spoke. You had your Mount Baowu release poison in Evil Sky Pavilion. According to our rules, you should be dead right now. Upon hearing this, Lu Ping broke out in a cold sweat. Elder, that mount is not mine. I was misled by others, driven by vanity. That mount was used by someone to frame me. Lu Zhou of course knew that Bama was behind this, but he did not point it out. Dan Yunjin has shown sense, and I have spared her. You, how do you propose to convince me to spare you? Lu Ping shuddered, scared to the point of stuttering, and quickly commanded his people to open the box he brought. I have brought some items to apologize to the elder. The 5 people behind him took out the items, drawing everyone's attention. Inside were various precious materials for refining tools and some books that Lu Zhou especially liked. In order to apologize to the old demon Lu Zhou, the 3rd elder of Luo sect hurriedly brought valuable gifts to Evil Sky Pavilion. He flipped open the top books and took out various precious materials for refining tools. Lu Zhou's gaze fell on those miscellaneous items. While stroking his beard, he pondered internally, Lu Ping has come to apologize. Why bring these things? Before he could ask, Lu Ping started explaining, These 4 individuals are my most capable arms in Luo sect, skilled at refining weapons. I heard that Dan Yunjin gave her falling moon bow to Miss Hua Yueshing. Before he could finish, Duan Mushing suddenly stepped forward with his overlord spear to correct him. Hold on, correct your mistake. The falling moon bow was returned to its rightful owner, not given as a gift. Lu Ping nodded anxiously. Right, returned to its rightful owner. He cursed Dan Yunjin in his heart again. The falling moon bow recognized Dan Yunjin as as its master and my 4 brothers, and I can reforge the falling moon bow. Lu Zhou stroked his beard, thinking he hadn't drawn a refining symbol in his lottery, so letting them try might be okay. Refining weapons is a skill possessed by few in the cultivation world, so it's not surprising that Luo sect has the confidence. How confident are you? Lu Ping proudly replied, over 60%, which is already very high. Even if it fails, we just need to refine it one more time to succeed. Lu Zhou asked further, how long will it take? Lu Ping answered, 10 days, which is already quite fast. Of course, that's if the materials are sufficient. Without enough materials, it would be nearly impossible within 6 months to a year. Lu Ping continued, I sincerely apologize and hope the elder can forgive my fault. Lu Zhou stood up and walked down the steps. That witchcraft cultivator, how did you come to know him? Lu Ping confessed everything. I met him in Divine Capital 10 days ago. It was all because of my vanity that I accepted the mount. Where is this person now? He should still be in Divine Capital. After the mount died, I haven't been able to contact him. Lu Zhou did not expect that this person would still be in Divine Capital. The second prince is dead. Molly is dead. This person should have no foothold in Divine Capital. Then where would he go? I can give you a chance, but you must answer my questions truthfully. Where's Yun Tianluo now? Upon hearing this, Lu Ping was momentarily stunned. If someone else had asked him this question, he would have been angered and stood up, but the elder before him was a figure of the same stature as ancestor Yun Tianluo. Only he dared to call the ancestor by his name directly. Lu Ping did not dare to delay, answering, the ancestor has always been in seclusion. Lu Zhou raised an eyebrow, seeking a breakthrough. Lu Ping hesitated, as this touched on sensitive matters within Luo sect. Seeing the serious expression on the elder's face, he could only reply, yes, Yun Tianluo has been at the 8th leaf for a long time. He still hasn't broken through to the 9th leaf. At the mention of the 9th leaf, Lu Ping was shocked. Why would the elder jest? Breaking through to the 9th leaf is extremely difficult. He wanted to say that even you haven't broken through to the 9th leaf, let alone the ancestor, but he swallowed his words to avoid offending anyone. Lu Zhou asked another significant question. How much longer does Yun Tianluo have? Lu Ping felt extremely uncomfortable. He hadn't expected Evil Sky Pavilion to inquire about these matters. Seeing his hesitation, Lu Zhou stroked his beard. I have some relations with Yun Tianluo. You need not worry. Lu Ping thought about it. Ji Tiandao's time is also running out, and there is no such tension. Why should Luo sect be anxious? Moreover, if Evil Sky Pavilion wanted to make a move, they would have done so already. Why delay? About 30 years. Lu Zhou pondered this number. Gong Yuandu spent about 100 years and failed. Yun Tianluo has been trying for about 70 years and still hasn't broken through to the 9th leaf. In other words, breaking through to the 9th leaf consumes at least 100 years of life. It's a pity there are few examples to refer to. Is Yun Tianluo still in seclusion? Hearing Lu Zhou's inquiry, Lu Ping answered, yes. Lu Zhou, with his hands behind his back, sighed. Stubborn people, it's all in vain. Only 30 years left, and still trying. Why bother? Lu Ping cautiously bowed and spoke. Maybe everyone who reaches the 8th leaf wants to give it a try. Elder, aren't you the same? Lu Zhou glanced at him, causing Lu Ping to shiver. If what Lu Ping said was true, then Ji Tiandao likely failed and perished while attempting to break through to the 9th leaf. Ji Tiandao, attacked by the top 10 masters, though said to have fought to a standstill, was injured. With the top 10 masters attacking again, Ji Tiandao had to try breaking through to the 9th leaf to survive. This is the most reasonable explanation. What a pity, what a pity. Lu Zhou shook off his thoughts and said, I will give you a chance. Hearing this, Lu Ping was overjoyed and quickly knelt to give thanks. Thank you, elder. I will reforge the falling moon bow back to an unmastered state within 10 days. Lu Zhou shook his head. 10 days is not enough. Hearing this, Lu Ping was confused. At that moment, Giani, arms crossed, stepped forward. Why are you so foolish? Bama even dared to sacrifice his mount, all to stir up trouble between Luo sect and Evil Sky Pavilion. If you go back, he'll surely kill you en route. Lu Ping was startled and felt a chill down his spine. Thank you for the warning, brother, and thank you, elder. Lu Zhou waved his hand. Take him away. Lu Ping paused, asking awkwardly, how long do I need to stay in Evil Sky Pavilion before I can leave? Lu Zhou stroked his beard. It has been a long time since I last saw Yun Tianluo. Upon hearing this, Lu Ping's eyes widened. What does that mean? Giani chuckled. With the elder protecting you, you should just feel lucky to go back to Luo sect. Lu Ping was nearly in tears. Is something big going to happen? Lu Zhou reassured him. No need to worry. I have a good relationship with Yun Tianluo. If it were really about causing trouble, would Dan Yunjin still be alive to return? Lu Ping thought about it and agreed. If the conflict were that serious, I would have been dead long ago. He looked at the female cultivator beside him. Please lead the way. Lu Zhou originally did not want to visit Luo sect, but now it seems necessary to make the trip personally to verify the connection between the 9th leaf and lifespan, and perhaps to obtain some crucial information from Yun Tianluo. Cloud sect, Sky sect, Luo sect. Only Cloud sect has some conflicts with Evil Sky Pavilion. However, in recent years, Cloud sect's influence has greatly diminished. Nowhere near as powerful as Sky sect and Luo sect. Almost negligible. Yun Tianluo only has 30 years left and is still in seclusion. He might be gone by tomorrow. Better to go sooner and be at ease. In the blink of an eye, 15 days later, in the main hall of Luo sect, the elders, looking at Dan Yunjin, whose face appeared troubled, said, "The second elder need not worry. Lu Ping is cautious. There will be no problems with this trip." Dan Yunjin sighed. The ancestor once said that we must never oppose Evil Sky Pavilion. Now thinking about it, the other elders laughed. Elder Dan went to Evil Sky Pavilion once, and now it seems like she has lost all her fighting spirit. Dan Yunjin remembered Lu Zhou's astonishing arrow. Her face flushed and her heart raced, feeling a mix of complex emotions. Just then, a disciple appeared at the entrance of the hall, panic written all over his face. Disciple greets all the elders. Elder Lu has sent an urgent message. The Pavilion Lord of Evil Sky Pavilion is coming to Luo sect. Hearing this, the elders stood up, showing surprised expressions. Ji Tiandao is coming to Luo sect? How is that possible? Old demon Lu Zhou, with his top combat forces, was heading to Luo sect. Knowing this, the elders of Luo sect were so frightened that they panicked. After calming down, they began to discuss. Evil Sky Pavilion goes too far. Isn't Luo sect's apology enough? Dan Yunjin even gave her falling moon bow to Evil Sky Pavilion. Why do they still bully us like this? Since he's coming, let's make sure he doesn't return. The barrier of our 10 sacred lands is no mere decoration. Cloud sect has always been at odds with Evil Sky Pavilion. We must notify Cloud sect. Not just Cloud sect, we should also involve Sky sect. Our 3 sects belong to the same lineage after all. If Evil Sky Pavilion is this oppressive, we must unite against them. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, back in Evil Sky Pavilion, Lu Zhou asked Ming Shireen, "How is the repair of the flying chariot coming along?" Ming Shireen responded, "The cloud-piercing flying chariot has been repaired." Lu Zhou turned his attention to Lu Ping. "How is the refinement of the falling moon bow going?" Back to the elder, "Very smoothly. This is exactly what Lu Ping excels at." He spoke with a hint of pride. Lu Zhou nodded, looked at the falling moon bow in Hua Yuexing's hands, which had been completely renewed, and said, "Although this bow is not a top-tier heavenly weapon, if used well, it can still transform significantly." Hua Yuexing gratefully thanked him, her admiration for Lu Zhou reaching new heights at that moment. Recalling the scene at the Cloudlark Ninefold Tower, when Giani suggested she join Evil Sky Pavilion, she had been somewhat skeptical, even a bit resistant. Now, thinking back, she realized it was foolish. Lu Zhou walked onto the flying chariot, followed by the others. "Greetings, Pavilion Lord." Considering that Golden Court Mountain had no barriers, Lu Zhou decided to stay on the mountain to prevent any infiltrations. The cloud-piercing flying chariot then departed from Evil Sky Pavilion, trailing a meteor-like tail across the sky. Lydian, leaning back and sipping his wine, felt the spectacle was a bit understated. "Aren't there too few people?" Lin Luo glanced at him, his voice deep. "Evil Sky Pavilion has no barrier protection. Naturally, some must remain to guard Evil Sky Pavilion." Lu Ping shivered, glancing around nervously. During his time at Evil Sky Pavilion, he had only heard of the venerable elders but had never met them. Now, on this flying chariot, he felt his insignificance and helplessness. "These are all big shots. I'm really panicking." Lydian chuckled. "What I'm worried about is the Great Witch Bama." Lin Luo was dismissive. "What about the Great Witch? His mount is dead, and he must be injured." With Giani, Duan Musheng, Zhao Yu, Zhu Honghong, and others guarding Evil Sky Pavilion, that should be enough. Lydian said. "Aside from Duan Musheng, who is passable, Zhao Yu and Zhu Honghong are still inexperienced, and Giani is nothing but a coward. The Great Witch, even if injured, should not be underestimated. After all, they rely on witchcraft formations." Lin Luo scoffed. "Witchcraft formations need to be set up in advance. Are you, old Pan, blind? Would you let him set it up right before your eyes? Besides, the Pavilion Lord's ferocity is not that of a normal beast." As the two big shots' argument grew more heated, Lu Ping wanted to intervene but lacked the courage to speak up at their level. If the big shots got angry, it could be disastrous. Just then, Lu Zhou spoke up to stop them. "Enough." The deep voice permeated the entire flying chariot, causing Lin Luo and Lydian to stop their bickering and bow toward Lu Zhou. Lu Ping watched, his heart trembling. What kind of charisma does the Grandmaster of Evil Sky Pavilion possess to make these two powerful figures willingly submit and instantly fall silent? As Lu Zhou admired the landscape, he stroked his beard and spoke. "Elder Lun, when did you break through to the 8th leaf?" Lin Luo thought for a moment and answered, "Over 300 years ago." Lu Ping's eyes widened. "Is this what big shots like to discuss?" Lu Zhou continued to inquire. "Have you thought about attempting to break through to the 9th leaf? You've been at the 8th leaf for so long. Haven't you thought about pushing for the 9th? Lin Luo shook his head. "I practice the art of Taoist concealment, which is difficult to perfect to the peak, and so far, I haven't had the opportunity to attempt reaching the 9th leaf." Lu Zhou stroked his beard. "That makes some sense. It also shows that reaching the 9th leaf is not something that can be done casually. What about you, Elder Pan?" Lydian put down the wine gourd in his hand and said, "I did have an opportunity 200 years ago, but unfortunately, it was too fleeting." Lin Luo glanced at him. "A fleeting peak is not a true peak." Lydian did not argue. Lu Zhou continued, "Based on the views of the two elders, what conditions are needed to advance to the 9th leaf?" Lin Luo answered, "I only know that to ascend to the 9th leaf, one must be at the peak of the 8th leaf. Beyond that, I don't know." Lydian agreed, and surprisingly, the two reached a consensus. At this point, Hua Wudao interjected, "Regarding this matter, surely no one understands better than Pavilion Lord. His comment was spot on. Among those present from Evil Sky Pavilion, none had reached Lu Zhou's level. Lu Zhou pondered for a moment and said, ascending to the 9th leaf is not impossible. At this statement, everyone was shocked. The 9th leaf, or realm set as forbidden by the heavens. Could there really be a chance? After a day and night of flying on the flying chariot, crossing thousands of miles, sweeping past countless mountains and rivers, or row upon row of peaks came into view. These are the 20 peaks of Yun Tianluo. From a high and distant vantage, the 20 mountains looked like 20 towering trees reaching into the clouds, as if situated amidst a sea of clouds. Such a place is easy to get lost in for those unfamiliar with it. Amid the cloud-enshrouded peaks, under Lu Zhou's instruction, Lu Ping led the way, genuinely afraid of leading wolves into the house, especially after meeting figures like Lung Luo and Pan Lydian. No matter how powerful the three sects were, they did not want to antagonize such formidable big shots. The cloud-piercing flying chariot headed towards the mountain belonging to Luo sect, passing through one barrier after another. Each time it passed a barrier, the barrier emitted a dull thud. Above the main hall of Luo sect's primary sacred site, the noise was thunderous. Elders and disciples gathered together, looking up at the sky. Finally, they saw a giant vessel trailing a long tail crossing the barrier. Is that the cloud-piercing flying chariot from Evil Sky Pavilion? Prepare to defend. The crowd was alarmed, watching the flying chariot intently, and they also wondered, how did the cloud-piercing flying chariot get through the barrier? Only core disciples know the correct path through the formation. How did Evil Sky Pavilion's people know? But now it was too late to ponder these questions. Have the people from Sky Sect and Cloud Sect arrived? A notable disciple responded from the crowd. They are already on their way. As soon as the words fell, the cloud-piercing flying chariot entered the sacred grounds of Luo sect from the barrier area. Seeing the precarious situation, someone quickly ordered, prepare the giant crossbows. Just then, a voice came from the flying chariot. I am Lu Ping. Hold your fire. Hearing his voice, the disciples of Luo sect looked at each other in confusion, and even the elders were puzzled. The message was sent by Lu Ping, and he brought Evil Sky Pavilion here. What is he trying to do? Wrapped in primal energy, the flying chariot turned direction, heading towards the space between the first and second mountains of the primary sacred site, and gradually came to a stop. The three sects share 10 sacred sites and 20 mountains, each holding 3 sacred sites and 6 mountains. The additional sacred site is called the Heavenly Sacred Land, a name uniquely designated by the 3 sects, flanked by 2 mountains. And in this sacred land, the ancestors of the 3 sects were in seclusion. The cloud-piercing flying chariot of Evil Sky Pavilion hovered in the air. Lu Ping turned back and gave Ming Shireen a pleading look. Ming Shireen stepped forward to take over his position, controlling the flying chariot's hover. Lu Ping was the first to leap down, descending toward the sacred land. The many elders of Luo sect saw Lu Ping and could not understand. Elder Lu, what exactly is going on? Lu Ping quickly explained the situation. Dan Yunjin heard this and frowned slightly. The ancestor is still in seclusion. This might not be appropriate, right? Lu Ping helplessly replied. That's what I said too. Both of them had witnessed the power of Evil Sky Pavilion and dared not be too arrogant. The other elders, however, were more confident. Good. Here is the first sacred site of Luo sect. Luo sect's core disciples and elders are all here, along with barriers and formations. Evil Sky Pavilion is indeed powerful, but that doesn't mean we must bow and scrape. One elder floated upwards and said, I'm sorry, the ancestor is in seclusion all year round and does not receive visitors. Please return. Ming Shireen stepped forward, politely stating, my master has had some dealings with Elder Yun in the past, and it has been many years since they last met. Please convey our request before making a decision. This was also polite. However, Ming Shireen felt uneasy, thinking that in such situations, they should directly jump down and make them cry for their parents. If the second elder brother were here, it would be better. He is suited for these polite occasions. The elder clearly had no intention of conveying the message. Sorry, the ancestor had ordered before his seclusion that he would not meet anyone, regardless of who they are. Ming Shireen was utterly disgusted by this sort of polite talk and burst out swearing, ungrateful. Hurry up, get your old man out here. After saying this, Ming Shireen felt much more relieved. This is how a disciple of Evil Sky Pavilion should act. Hua Wudao gave him a thumbs up. Lu Zhou's expression remained calm, and he said nothing. Ming Shireen breathed a sigh of relief. That silence was taken as agreement. An elder floating in the air cupped his hands and said, why must Evil Sky Pavilion press so hard? Hasn't Luo sect sent envoys to apologize continuously? Isn't that enough? So much nonsense. Ming Shireen suddenly threw out the separation hook. The heavenly grade weapon flew through the air rapidly, propelled by forceful energy. With a bang, the elder was caught off guard. Although he erupted with forceful energy to withstand the separation hook, he still retreated rapidly with a look of terror on his face. With this action, all the disciples and elders of Luo sect on the sacred ground instantly took to the air, ready to start a major fight. Lu Ping almost cried, waving his hands to stop everyone. No, the fourth elder had a poor impression of Lu Ping and scolded him. Elder Lu, what are you doing? Lu Ping was frantic. Foolish. Listen to me. Those on the flying chariot are not ones we can afford to provoke. Is it really that exaggerated? The elders looked at each other in disbelief. Lu Ping was actually siding with outsiders to scold his own people. Had he lost his mind? Luo sect indeed does not wish to make enemies, but we shouldn't have to grovel or kowtow. The ancestor is still here. Lu Ping, do not encourage others at our expense and diminish our own prestige. At this moment, a hoarse voice came from the flying chariot. Elder Leng here thinks Lu Ping is quite sensible, a smart man. Leng Luo stepped forward and walked on air. Although his cultivation had not fully recovered, levitating was not a problem for him. Dressed in black with a mask, he appeared quite menacing. The disciples in the sacred ground were terrified. Is this an elder from Evil Sky Pavilion? Lu Ping quickly introduced. This man is Leng Luo, once the foremost on the blacklist 300 years ago. Hearing this, the elders' eyes stilled, and thinking back to how they were about to engage in combat, they felt a chill down their spines and their hands trembled. That was close, too close. At that moment, a figure as swift as lightning approached from the air from the second mountain, arriving above the sacred ground in an instant. The utmost speed, the utmost cultivation, a face full of beard, eyes like fire. The many disciples of Luo's sect looked over. The great elder has arrived. Greetings to the great elder. The middle-aged man with a full beard and long robe was Chunan, the great elder of Luo's sect. Chunan's gaze was sharp as he cupped his hands and said, Luo's sect's great elder Chunan, pleased to meet Elder Leng. Leng Luo calmly glanced at him and said, Chunan, I didn't expect that after 100 years, you would become the great elder of Luo's sect. Chunan's brow furrowed slightly. It's just luck. Hearing that the pavilion lord of Evil Sky Pavilion was visiting in person, how could I not come to welcome you? All of you have come from afar, and Luo's sect naturally wishes to treat you with courtesy. Allow me to host you. How does that sound? Leng Luo chuckled, his voice raspy and deep. You are not yet qualified to speak with the pavilion lord. Chunan's frown deepened. He was, after all, the great elder of Luo's sect, and yet Leng Luo was giving him no face. The ancestor is in seclusion, truly unable to meet with you. As the third elder, Lu Ping also had the standing to speak. Unable to bear it any longer, he loudly reminded, Great elder, please ask the ancestor to leave seclusion. This is a serious matter, not a joke. Chunan snorted coldly and swiftly sent a palm strike, which was incredibly sharp and fast, towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping was startled, not expecting the great elder to strike his own people, and quickly raised his arms, crossing forceful energy. But he was no match for the great elder and grunted as he fell downwards. This move clearly established their disparity. Shut your mouth and just watch. After speaking, Chunan forced a smile and turned to face Leng Luo. Apologies, Elder Leng, for making you witness this farce. The youth doesn't know the rules. His attitude seemed humble and polite on the surface, but it was really manipulative. Ming Shireen scoffed, quite the authority. Chunan looked at him. It's not the place of the younger generation to interrupt when their elders are speaking. His words had a double meaning, mocking Ming Shireen while also rebuking Lu Ping. Just as Ming Shireen was about to react, Leng Luo raised his arm and stepped forward. Do you enjoy bullying the younger generation? When I roamed the lands, you were still in your mother's womb. As he finished speaking, his 8-leaf avatar blossomed. In the moment of blossoming, the golden lotus's 8 petals rapidly spun, resembling a wheel spinning in the water. The forceful energy spun out like droplets expanding outward, dissipating in a breath. A moment was enough. Chunan, being the closest, was the first to be swept back by the blast, his face filled with terror. An 8-leaf avatar. Why would someone with such strength and cultivation willingly stay at Evil Sky Pavilion? Leng Luo said in a deep voice, Evil Sky Pavilion's visit is merely for catching up. Do not force me to take action. With those words, silence fell over the sacred land, the atmosphere turning somewhat oppressive and stagnant, and no one dared to step forward again. Chunan, merely at the 7th leaf, and even with the help of second elder Dan Yunjin at the 6th leaf, could not possibly contend against an 8 leaf, let alone the others. Strength speaks. Who else would dare to defy? Just as everyone was at a loss, suddenly, figures began to appear in the sky around the sacred ground, groups of 3 or 5 stepping through the air, some riding swords, others standing on various oddly shaped weapons. The people from Cloud Sect and Sky Sect had arrived.